Hey, Margie here. Are you ready to learn how using the tools from the earth and wisdom from indigenous cultures, we can really increase our happiness? Well, today that's our topic. I was so fortunate for my happiness challenge to interview Dr. Maya Shetreat. And it was such a popular interview that I wanted to share it today on the podcast. Dr. Shetreat is a neurologist, herbalist, urban farmer, and author of the best-selling book, The Dirt Cure: Healthy Food, Healthy Gut, Happy Child, which has been translated into 10 languages. She has been featured in the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, NPR, Goop, The Dr. Oz Show, and more. Dr. Maya is the founder of the Terrain Institute, where she teaches terrain medicine, earth-based programs for transformational healing. She has studied with several teachers of spiritual work and has worked and studied with indigenous communities, elders, and healers from around the world. She is a lifelong student of ethnobotany, plant healing, and the sacred. And in today's interview, she delves into tools that we can use from the earth to really upgrade our happiness. It's very powerful. And I got such amazing, amazing responses from this because these are so effective. So stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Maya. Thank you so much for being here. I just absolutely love the work you do, and it so resonates with who I am. And I've gotten so much benefit from what you're going to talk about today, and earth medicine and different things that you're part of. And I'm just really, really thrilled to share this with everyone who's listening today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So I think it's really important to know how you got, because here you are, a pediatric neurologist working in medicine, how you got to be doing earth medicine or terrain medicine. What made you go in this direction where
I think it's such an interesting question, and maybe it's kind of also relevant to the topic of happiness because, I kind of came to the table as when I even went to medical school, with a lot of different interests and parts of me. And I'd always been really interested in the natural world. And I was that kid who went and played by the creek for hours and made potions and built little altars, although I wouldn't have called them altars. I was an only child, so I occupied myself for hours, and I was an only child in the 70s, so nobody really knew or cared where I was until it got dark outside. So, so I was like very deeply, connected to that whole world. And then I think for so many of us, I think many of us are as kids in our particular ways. And then, as you get older, and for me, it was once I got to like high school, but especially college and especially med school, that, you're supposed to compartmentalize all these other parts of yourself, whether they be more spiritual or more emotional, or, these parts of you that might, mean that you're not taken as seriously. So, I think when I went to med school, I left behind or compartmentalized a lot of those parts of myself. And so a lot of my work is less about going in a different direction than it is about reclaiming these parts of myself that were always there and that I think are there for so many people and need to be reclaimed as well.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. So this is the happiness challenge. And my goal is to really provide people with tools that they can use in their life. And I know we could probably talk 10 hours because you have so much amazing information. But what would you say, because we want to increase joy and happiness, what tools would you say from your work with terrain medicine, with indigenous cultures and all your studying, that maybe you could share with everybody listening to add a little more joy into their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy that you're doing this. And I was telling you before we got on how important I think it is because, when we're in challenging periods in our lives, whether it's individually or collectively, part of, I think, karmic work in this world is to learn to find joy in any situation at any point. you know, never to become totally disconnected from that, even when we're challenged, you know? So I love that you're offering all these voices and tools around how to do that. And for me, you know, based on my own work and my own, you know, very long-term study and lifelong study with the indigenous elders and plants and animals and kind of earth wisdom, you know, a big part of what really makes us feel joy, I think, is really about, I mean, for me, it's about terrain, and that's how I talk about it, which is being connected to yourself, being connected to those around you, being connected to the place you are, right? The earth and wherever you are. So for me, you know, I'm always thinking about what are things that are eternal, that help us, you know, that we can access at any time, that can help us to be in a place of, for me, it's appreciation, gratitude, and awe. And when we're in that place, for me, this is true. And I think it's true in a very, you know, I think it's true from an ancestral and lineage standpoint. It's very, you know, because we think of happiness, I think happiness could be perceived as more superficial, right? Like something made me happy because things went right today. And that's, of course, something to be happy about. But when we think about joy and like happiness in this deeper, more durable way, it has to do, for me, with things that are deeply connected and rooted, and like, so that you have this beautiful terrain that you can always come to, this sort of sacred space. And so for me, it's going into my garden, you know, going into a park, going into the woods, you know, watching the sunrise. Like, I think that there are things that we can find wonder, awe, joy, gratitude, and you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to be in a particular place like, oh, I love being in Peru, or I love being, you could be wherever you are, the sun rises and the sun sets in those places, and there could be a beautiful moon, or you can, you know, you can see a bird, you can, you know, generally, and this is not always true, but we can find a tree or a beautiful little spot in nature just to sit on the ground and like kind of get connected and grounded. And those are really peaceful things, and joyful things. And I think part of that is because it's, you know, one of the things that nature offers us is to be in alignment with this sacred geometry. And for people who don't know what sacred geometry is, like, you know, it's sort of all those beautiful pictures, probably a lot of people have seen them on like social media, of, you know, how there are, you know, the petals of the flower, you know, are in this particular kind of pattern, and, you know, the rings on the tree, and the way leaves are, and the veins in the leaf, and how they actually reflect and mirror like our own neurons. If you look at mycelial networks under the ground, they reflect the way our neurons look in our brains, and the same thing with how branches grow and all these different things. And so it's like very aligning, you know, and very balancing.
I love everything you're saying, because gratitude, appreciation is so very important. But I love the word that you used, in awe. And that's what nature does. That's such a wonderful way of putting it, because I mean, gratitude, appreciate is all the antidote to stress and the antidote to so many of us, our existence when we're living in the mind. But to be in awe with nature, because it is amazing and it is beautiful. And they've done so much research on it, how it affects every aspect of the person. I mean, there's so many studies on how physiologically we change when we're in nature, and there's nothing that feels better. And also, I liked what you said about happiness, because it's not that superficial happiness. It's a deep sense of inner peace and well-being, regardless of your circumstances. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Because that other happiness, Sure, if something goes right, if you're happy in a relationship, that doesn't last, and that's not reality, because life has its ups and downs. And when we go through our biggest challenges, we have our biggest growth. So I think when we develop these tools, and that's so wonderful. And I think what happens so often is that we're just so busy in our heads that we don't see the beauty there. You can live right near a gorgeous park and you're just worried about something that you miss the whole park. And so I think I love what you said, by just looking at it, looking at the sacred geometry, exploring it, that can just really increase your happiness. And you live in the moment too. I think oftentimes we're living in the fear of the future, or we're living in the past. And when we do what you said, it just puts us to live in the present. So that was just really very wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think sharing stories is a way to be in a place of joy too. Like, I'm just very briefly going to share this one thing, which is something that has given me a lot of happiness and joy this particular last few months, which is I got a salvia plant. There's a particular kind of flowering plant that grows in the Northeast. I went to a farmer's market and I got this 3 salvia plants in blue, purple, and red. And I planted them I didn't really know where to put them in my garden. And I live in New York City, but I happen to be very blessed to have a very big green space. And so, and I keep chickens and other things. So I have this green space and I put it right near my patio, near the back of my house, where I could see them. And we have had almost every day, I would say 5 out of 7 days, we see hummingbirds from the salvia. And not just the way I've seen hummingbirds in the past, which is like, they're gone, but like really there for many, many minutes, drinking and going to each one. And I've gotten beautiful videos, and one time brought other hummingbirds. And it's really this experience of awe and wonder, and and really joy. It's like you feel so like you picked me. You picked this place and where I am. And, those are the kinds of things that are these moments that nature can offer us, seeing that gorgeous butterfly or that bird or whatever it might be. And really, as you said, it has to do with choosing. The choice that we have, the agency that we have, is to be present. We can't always control everything that's going on, but if we can be present to those kinds of moments, make the choice to get out to the park or get out into your yard or your garden or whatever, that's an invitation for very joyful things to happen.
Oh, that sounds so great. I love hummingbirds. I've noticed a lot more butterflies and beautiful birds, just even in my backyard or on my walks in the park. And the key thing is I stop, because it is a challenging time right now. This is not easy. And just soaking it in and absorbing it and just really paying attention to it, it just takes your happiness. It really just lets it soar. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So I wanted to delve into, because I'm a big crystal person. There's certain things that I love, and it's very interesting because I'm a person who really delves into the science behind things. I always want to know exactly why this works, how this works. But when it comes to crystals or anything like that, I have never wanted to know anything. I literally would go into a crystal store and I would just feel what resonated with me and what makes me feel good. And I've been doing this for years. So I know certain things are grounding and what certain things mean, but I've never wanted. I've just chosen not to study it because I sort of didn't want to put it in my head. I get such a great sense from everything. And so anyway, once I saw your earth medicine kit that you created, I said, I have to have this. And so maybe you can, because there's all sorts of different pieces and people can listen and take parts of this and use them, because it's so crazy how powerful this tool is. And as you said, you can sit with it. What I do, I meditate with the crystals. I'll take them out. I'll just show. So it comes with 6 vials, and 4 of them are different crystals and stones. I mean, they're just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And it's just so energizing. I keep it near the computer when I do any program because it feels so good. But and then you have seeds. So maybe, and seeds is not something that I've really ever utilized before. So maybe you can fill us in on the wisdom behind some of this, because it feels really great, and I've been playing with it because that's what you said in your instructions, that
Yeah.
play with it, and it's just very miraculous. So if you want to, oh, and I guess I should show this too. And then this one, oh my gosh, this one is what I feel for me is like inspiration. It just, for some reason, I just can't explain it. It's a visceral sense. But it's, first of all, it's gorgeous. It's hard to see here, the blues, and it's just so pretty. But fill us into how these work and maybe how ancient cultures use them, or just give us a little more wisdom about these things, because they feel so good.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I did this was because I wanted people to get to experiment. Like, I love what you said about when you go to look for a crystal, that you're not in your head. I wanted to give people, and I think it actually is such a good, it's so aligned with the idea of a happiness challenge, because sometimes the hard part about getting into our happy place or our joyful place is getting out of our heads, right? And that goes back to what I said about being a doctor who does kind of all these different things as well, and incorporating all of my kind of more earthy and spiritual work into who I am as a whole person, because we've really cut ourselves away from that intuitive part. And so what I wanted to do is give people an opportunity to learn how, just to practice, I should say, getting out of their heads, So I love that you're like, oh, it just feels good. Like, that's what I wanted is, okay, you have this opportunity to play with beautiful things, beautiful, beautiful things that have a lot of, their own kind of healing power, that you can keep them in special places for you, like that you say, I have it next to me when I'm working. And think how right now, if you're keeping it next to your computer, you probably spend a good amount of your day on your computer, if you're like almost everyone right now. So you're creating basically a little sacred space by having these beautiful bits of nature, these little precious bits of nature all around you, surrounding you while you're doing your work. So this is part of why I did it. And the kinds of elements that I wanted to bring in were things that were calming, kind of magical, transformative, and that people can engage in the ways that they want to engage. So what I want for everybody is to feel like they can use these little tools, and I'll talk about each of them in a minute, to have a safe space of their own that they can create whenever they want. So in times of kind of tumultuous times, or even in celebratory times, to feel like I have this special place that I can go and be in that place of gratitude, appreciation, wonder, and awe, even if I'm not going to be able to go outside, or, whatever it might be. And I think lately, right, for a lot of people who are like in a very intense quarantine, some people who lived in cities or, whatever, weren't really able to go outside, and they use their earth medicine kits to really do that. So anyway, I think, what I included in it was a big crystal for people who wanted that. So you were showing a labradorite.
Oh, it's just,
Yeah.
it's just really something about it. It's that awe factor. That was a great word. It really is. It's just hard to believe that something like this isn't man-made, that something like this exists with all these intricacies and these colors and it's just beautiful.
And what people may or may not be able to see in the labradorite is that, and I made sure that all of them had a rough component and a polished component. So there was that sense of the wildness, of the crystals, and the beauty and the polished part of it. The lore of labradorite, one of the many stories about it, is that it actually holds little bits of the aurora borealis inside the stone, and it's considered a shaman stone, for transformation and really for magical work, in a sense. I mean, you don't have to do that. You could just appreciate how beautiful it is, but those little glints that you see really do feel like, wow, they took a piece of that aurora borealis and somehow Mother Earth managed to kind of encapsulate it into a rock. And I have here celestite crystal egg, which is another one of the possible stones that you can use. And that's more for dreaming and for peaceful peaceful sleep and, anxiety and things like that. So there's that, and they're very grounding, nice big stones. And I actually recommend, because I want to mention, even outside of this kit, I recommend getting a nice big stone, and having it to put in your lap if you find yourself anxious. Something that has a little weight to it, could be in your yard or, in the forest or wherever, but just it doesn't even have to be a crystal. It could literally be just any rock, and try it. I highly recommend for anxiety. It's very literally grounding.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a question for you though, before you go on, because sleep is such an issue right now and so many people are having. So are you saying there are certain stones that really help with sleep, and you found that with your patients, is there a ritual that goes along with it, or?
Yeah, I think, so sleep rituals I think are so important. And we talk about that in medicine, even conventional doctors say sleep rituals. But I actually really think that there are there's the bath, and there's having good smells, or maybe an essential oil. But yeah, like these stones, like, when you look at a stone like this, and and it's smooth on the outside, and it feels very nice to your hands, and it's a little weighty, and then inside it's like this really, it's sort of got this like real dreamtime energy of just like the color, almost like, you're dreaming and you're going to go into the sky. And I actually will recommend that people put it near their bed if they want to set up make a little design, or just put their little pieces together. So celestite, this stone is called celestite. It almost makes you think, it's like celestial, kind of takes you to dreamland, right? Amethyst is another one that's really nice for that. And very peaceful. Clear quartz, which actually there are in the little vials. We have amethyst in some of them, and we have
that's pink quartz.
Little matchsticks and things. Yeah. Yeah. And then in that kit for dreaming, for sleeping and dreaming, I actually have an African dream seed. And African dream seeds are really amazing. They're considered to be amulets in Africa and in South America and Australia. They're also, the reason they're considered to be such good luck is that they have these very thick shells, and they can float in the ocean for months and months and never disintegrate, which is like, what, and so and actually, if you eat the seed, some people actually smoke it apparently, but if you even just eat the seed, it helps you dream. It helps you sleep, and it helps you dream. Now, I'm not necessarily saying people should eat that seed. For a lot of people, they keep it as an amulet, and it actually, I wonder, well, I'm not going to grab it. It's like at a table a little over there, but they're beautiful big seeds, like this big. And so those are considered also to be helpful for sleep and for dreaming. And seeds are really amazing. I'm just going to mention for a minute why they're so important and why I included them. So I have all these.
I have these 2 vials of seeds. One looks like corn, right? Is that corn?
There are 2 different kinds. Yeah. I think, let me see. Yeah, I think you have 2 different kinds of corn, and these are they're heirloom kinds of seeds that you actually can plant, which is, really amazing. And they come from, in many cases, they come from indigenous. There are gifts from indigenous communities to everybody that they've been keeping on for centuries and centuries, and they shared these particular very special seeds. So I love that. But also, seeds are considered to be potential. They're considered to be they represent energetic potential. And they're kind of like beginnings and ends both at the same time, right? Because when a plant dies, everything goes to seed. And so that's where, when I gather seeds to save seeds at the end of my garden season, I'm getting them, I'm getting them from the dead plant, and then they're the beginning of the next plant. So What I love about seeds is that they represent, you know, one seed represents like a whole forest of trees, you know, it represents thousands and thousands of plants. And I love that because it's sort of like energetically, it's like when you're holding a vial of seeds, you're holding all this potential, and you're holding your own potential in that moment. And so it's sort of like a way of setting intention and manifesting.
Wow. So you can use this, set an intention, because I've been using the stones more than I have the seeds, because this is new to me. And so basically you can take them out, hold them in your hands, or even I hold the stones in my hands. I take them out when I meditate, but I could try that with the seeds as well.
I would definitely try it with the seeds. Yeah.
So interesting. Wow. Okay. So there's some other goodies that I think are, can we go to, well, you want to go in order, or you want me just?
Whatever you want. I mean, you know, go where you
Okay,
go.
so let's talk about this for smudging, I'm assuming. I haven't used, as you see, I haven't used everything, but.
You don't have to, you know, things present themselves when you feel ready, you know, to work with them. So that's actually, I made those all with my own hands. And that is made from mugwort, which grows on my property.
Wow, in
And
New York City, I can't get over this.
I have a tremendous amount of mugwort. I make mugwort actually tincture and mugwort pillows for dreaming, because mugwort is considered to be a very strong protection plant, but it's also really, really helpful for dreaming. So I love that because mugwort is very versatile. It's not an endangered plant at this point anyway. It's like very common and happens to grow on my property. So I thought, wow, what an amazing message that I can kind of work with this plant and help people with dreaming, help people with protection, and really, and cleaning is, you know, in indigenous culture, what you do with one of those little bundles is you burn it. So you light it on fire and then you immediately blow it out. And what happens is it smolders and smoke comes. And sometimes it takes a couple times to get it going, but basically that little bit of smoke that comes, you can walk around your space, whether it's outside, whether it's inside. And there's actually scientific data that it helps clean the air. It actually cleans the air in a closed space. That's been published in peer-reviewed journals. But in addition to that, it also, you know, let's say you wanted to do your bedroom, for example, before you went to sleep because you wanted to have nice, peaceful dreams and feel kind of held and protected. That would be a way to enhance your sleep.
Oh, I love this. I've done sage where if there's been some negativity, some people have been in my house or something, I just wanted to cleanse it away and start anew. I've used sage, just burn it.
Sure.
But this is so interesting because also for happiness, if we're feeling negativity or we're feeling that we just need to change the atmosphere and we're just the vibe, how wonderful. So how long could something like this, can you use it a few times? Like use it, then blow it out and then reuse it?
And it comes with a little abalone shell.
Yes.
So that you can hold it. You don't
Yeah.
have to, yep. So, and the cool thing is that I wanted to have in this kit, I wanted to have things that represented earth. So that's the stones and the seeds. I wanted things that would represent air, which is the smudge. I wanted something to represent water, which is the shell. So that abalone shell also acts as like a little ashtray. If you want to walk around so that like the little ashes don't fall onto the floor. It's also a beautiful little container for, you know, if you want to take seeds out and play with them with your hand, which I of course do all the time because I like to have busy hands. And so, yeah, so we have all these different elements and that smudge. What I love about using mugwort is that it's native to the States, and it's and it's also some white sage is endangered.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's sort of nice to have something that we can access. And in each of those bundles, I put either cedar, pine, or juniper as well. And in some of them, holy basil, so that there's like a whole, you can make smudges with rosemary and basil and lavender. Like it's really nice to play with that.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, tonight before bed, Here we go. But I think with the energy, because as I said, I'm a big energy person, and sometimes you just need to change the energy, and that's how I've used the sage. But this sounds amazing. Wow.
And I'll tell you, my son, my youngest son, who's sort of the inspiration for me writing my book, The Dirt Cure, he sort of took me on my journey. I call him my muse because he always takes me to where I need to be, even professionally, with his things that come up. But when he's not feeling good, he will say, "Can I smudge?" or ask me to smudge. He's 14 years old, you know? So he really feels it. He really notices it. And I think kids do, especially because they haven't yet like unlearned how to feel, how to be in their bodies, you know, and how to really feel what's going on.
That's amazing. That, yeah. And I guess if you expose them to it young, they have these tools for their life. They don't unlearn it, as you said, and can, oh yeah, not sleeping well, let's just get a little mugwort. Wow. All right. So while you're, because again, all right, we have the candle. Is there anything special? Is that just ritual with the candles, or something special about the candle?
Also, the candle represents fire. So now we have, right, we have the earth, we have water, we have air, we have fire. And so that's part of it. And yellow actually is a beautiful color. So we use the candles as, you know, using kind of the energy imprint or spiritual imprint of those colors, because each color is a frequency and that affects how we feel. And yellow is very beautiful color for happiness.
Absolutely. That's true. A lot of times I have my mother, who passed away, loved yellow roses. So often, just in her memory, because she was such a special person, I'll have yellow roses, but they weren't nice last time I was there. So I'm so into even the yellow, it just makes me feel good.
Sunflowers, calendula, daffodils, all these yellow flowers are like very joyful. Anyway, and so lighting the candle though also is about, it's sort of a way, it is a ritual, right? To light a candle. There's something about it that changes things, right? It changes the energy when you light a candle. And so I think it's a really beautiful way to set an intention, but also just kind of to say, here I am, I'm doing this thing. Like I'm here, I'm being present in this moment, doing this beautiful act. And it's especially nice. I mean, I light candles before I do interviews sometimes. I light candles when I teach my students. I'll light a candle just, again, it's sort of calling in this special energy for me to step into.
And I also find lighting candles, I do light candles as well. I find it's just relaxing. It's just, it just takes you down a notch. For me, I guess for everybody it's different, but
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, a few more things because I have questions. This.
Okay, so that is the pod of a lotus.
Okay.
The lotus flower, a lot of people know about the lotus flower.
Yes.
You know, and it's like a lot of people's logo, actually. And it has that sacred geometry. And, you know, we see these beautiful, beautiful lotuses sometimes, like, you know, growing in, I go to like a botanical garden near me, and they have lotus flowers, and they're so magnificent. The lotus pods and the lotus seeds are also considered very special and very sacred. They're actually a sacred plant. And what I love, I mean, I couldn't obviously include a lotus blossom because that would be a little more challenging for people to receive. But what I could do is give this lotus pod to get a lot of that same kind of energy. And the cool thing about, one of the many cool things, I mean, I could talk about lotus, we could talk about lotuses for an entire interview, but is that lotuses, you know, they grow in the mud. They grow out of the muck. They don't, you know, it's like, we like to think of everything as being very clean and neat. But what I love about the lotus and what that represents is lotuses grow in muck. And so there's a saying, no mud, no lotus, right? Like we can look at the muckiness, and you said this yourself a little earlier, that these difficult experiences, because life has ups and downs, and we need those ups and downs. They're both gifts to us. I mean, if life is only down, 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 we're not gonna be able to have the, you know, those moments to really give us joy. But if life is only good and easy, then we're not really growing and expanding as humans and evolving. So both of those are kind of part of the important chemistry and journey of life. And so that idea, no mud, no lotus, it's like you get these magnificent things from the muck. And I think it's just such a beautiful reminder too, to have that as part of this, to always know that in the hard times, beautiful things can grow from that.
Oh, that's just, I love that, because so often I'll use the lotus as a visualization, like think of a lotus in your heart and think of, but that's a really interesting way to put it, because I really feel, I totally agree that we need these challenging times, and there are gifts. There are gifts. When we look, we come through these with lessons, with gifts that completely transform our life. My whole life has been like that. So I think when people look at it, like they may not know now, you know, you don't always have to know what the gift is at the moment, but just to know that this might be happening for a bigger purpose, and what that purpose might be. It really helps transform the moment so that you don't have to go totally down in the depths.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I kind of think of now as like being in a birth canal, you know?
Yes, yes.
Kind of being squeezed, and it feels like we don't know where we're going, and we're leaving this thing that was comfortable and felt really like we were held in some way, even though it also might have been constricting, and there might be a way that, you know, we're getting born into this next world that's going to feel much richer and more vivid and with much more possibility. But when you're in that period in between, it's nice to have little reminders like the lotus, you know, to really get you through that.
Yeah, that's great. What a great analogy. It's true though. I do believe in my heart, and I'm the world's greatest optimist, but I truly do feel that we were in a very bad place before this. The world was not a kind, loving universe. And I truly believe in so many ways that we will get through this and be stronger, and then in so many areas. And then if there was real problems and injustice and racial injustice that we didn't know about, and we didn't know the deep wound in our country, let it come out so that we can be stronger and be united. And so I do believe once we get through this, that good things will come, and we'll look back and we'll say, you know what, the way everything happened allowed for great growth and just to be
healing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, if we don't look at the things that are problems, then there's no way to heal it. So we're seeing a lot of hard and maybe ugly things right now, but they were always probably there in some way, and it was just, we can't ignore it. Now we're in a place where it's harder to ignore it, but now we're also in a place where it's so much more possible to heal it.
Right.
That's optimists, I think.
I think so too. And then the other things you have are just a lot of earth things that I guess you can play with. Like I love these pine cones and just different things, and there's some real pretty things in here that I haven't done that yet. These are gorgeous, these little stars.
So that's star anise. So for some people, they build mandalas with these.
Ooh.
So I love having all these nice things that are and the anise smells so nice, and cinnamon gives it just like, I think, such a nice, and because for me, smell is so important even as a neurologist, to be a little brainy about it. Your sense of smell is the one sense that doesn't have any processing. It goes directly to your brain. There's nothing in between. You don't analyze it in any way with some other section of your brain. So it can change things like that very quickly. And of course, we know how a smell can just bring a memory right away or change your mood right away. So yeah, and the moss, you actually can plant if you wanted to in the ground. You could literally put it around a tree, or you could plant it in a house plant and water it, and it will actually like become part of it and help protect the soil around it. And so, yeah, and I use the moss and the little pine cones instead of as packing. I didn't want to use packing material and be wasteful, so I thought these are things that can just be part of nature, and if people don't want them, they can either play with them, they can make mandalas with them and all of that, or
how creative, right? Wow. It's so fun. I'm not an artsy type of person, but I'm actually excited to play. It brings, and I think that's another thing, you know, to grow your brain and just to keep to do things that you've never done before. So for me, like playing with this kind of thing, I love gardening, but just playing with some of these things is just really fun, and it's a new experience. Wow.
I love that you use the word play, because what I call it is sacred play.
Oh,
So,
that's great.
you know, and I think we need so much of that, because play as adults is not something that we're encouraged at all to do. Our society is very like, you know, in a kind of in a capitalist society, it's like do, work, achieve, you know, make progress all the time. And this idea of going inward, you know, that's like kind of, that's a very masculine energy. And so I would say, like, in terms of part of what I would love to share with people in a happiness challenge is that there is this feminine energy, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't even matter, you know, because we all are operating in those kinds of energies within ourselves. That going inward, that kind of being in that creative space and being in the place of sacred play, not trying to move forward and achieve and check things off the to-do list, but actually just being in that receptive space. It's actually, I think, part of that balance that really does create joy for us, you know, so that we're not too far in one direction.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. And coming from you as a physician, what I also like is that you've seen, I'm sure you've seen such transformation, not from the supplements you're giving, not that that hasn't helped, but when people incorporate these concepts, has it been incredible for you as a physician to see these transformations?
It's really powerful. And I have people who come to see me for spiritual work as well, because I do a lot of indigenous kind of healing work, which is not just, you know, like labs and supplements and that kind of thing. And a lot of them will say they hear my voice in their head. They're like, I know what you would say. And it's sort of like a little bit of a deprogramming. You know, it's not like I want to be in people's heads in that way, but more like they hear like the other voice saying, oh, like I could play, or, oh, I should just get to a place of gratitude right now, or, you know, on and on and on. And so, yeah, like I see people's whole lives change. That's what I see, you know, not just physically, but really like in such profound ways that allow their health to, their physical health to be better, but also change their trajectory to be something more authentic and like kind of delightful. You know what I mean? So
I
that,
so know that, because as a physical therapist, that's what I've been seeing for 35 years, that this piece, this happiness piece, or this deprogramming piece, whatever it is, once people tune into that and tune in possibly to their spirituality or nature, there's so many ways to get to these places. It's amazing how their health improves. Every single thing improves. And so to me, you need that base. Like that's where you start. And then you can, you know, everything else is of course important, but it's just so wonderful that you're doing this work, because I think you're really changing lives. And this kit is just, I can't even get over it. I have to thank you, because I saw it and I said, you know, sometimes you see something and you know, oh my gosh, I must have that. That's sort of the feeling that I got when I saw, I don't even know, I saw it through a video, and, you know, we know each other. We've known each other for years. And I said, oh, I love because you didn't do this a couple of years ago. This is relatively new. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love what she's doing. And so, but it's really brought me so much joy. And I'm just, thank you so much for sharing this with everybody. And so we'll have the links below the video that, and it's nice because you have two options. You have one, just simply to have the vials with the basic, and then if people want to go more, but regardless, you've given us so many things and tools that we can put into our life that I truly believe are life challenging and will lead to that deep happiness that we are all striving for. So thank you for being part of the challenge, and thank you for really being a bright light on this planet and doing the amazing, amazing work that you do.
well, I feel the same, Margie. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this.
Well, thanks, and look forward to keeping in touch. I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Dr. Maya as much as I have, and now have a better understanding of what Earth medicine is and how we can use the tools from Mother Earth, as well as the wisdom from indigenous cultures to upgrade our happiness and improve our health. All the links to Dr. Maya's kits will be in the show notes. So bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.